During this lecture, I will show you how to make bow tie diagram, and we will also see a practical example how to make the risk analysis and how to analyze the risk factors and the consequences of one risk. So at first, let's depict the risk bow tie diagram. At the center of this diagram, there is a risk that you would like to analyze. On the left part of this diagram, there are risk factors. You can find a big amount of risk factors. They can be external and internal. For each risk, it will be individually. And moreover, each risk factor can have another risk factors. And in more cases, it is the sources of information that can be useful for risk. So it is a risk factor, and each risk factor could also have another risk factors, but more often they are called sources. And it is the left part of our diagram. At the right part, there can be some consequences of the risk. Consequences are connected with what will happen when the risk will occur. There can be also some of consequences. They can be financial or non-financial, and these consequences could influence financial KPIs of organization, for example, and these consequences could also have connection with this KPI. So it is our consequences, and this is the KPI of organization with which these consequences are connected. So it is very simple form of bow tie diagram with the left part and the right. And on this diagram we could also depict the controls. It is the measures that help us to prevent a risk or to prevent risk factors or risk consequences. So we can make these barriers. It is our control procedures, our measures that help us to reduce the risk factors. So it is the border for risk factors on the left type of this diagram. And also we can have some procedures of another character. It will be the controls that are aimed to reduce the risks when the risk will occur. So these controls procedures are connected with the likelihood of risks and with its risk factors, and this type of control procedures are connected with the consequences of risks. And now I'll show you the example how the risk analysis could be made on the risk. For example, let's take the risk of increase in cost of goods procurement for our organization. So it will be the increase of costs, I'll write like this, for the goods of our organization. For example, we have some productive line, some manufacturing company, and we have the increase of goods. What risk factors do we have? First of all, the increase of our goods can be connected with the monopoly. So it is monopoly of our supplier. He can increase the cost for the goods that we want to buy. Moreover, it can be the risk factors that connected with our wish to buy these goods because we have such force majeure, for example, and we want to buy these goods now. So it will be our internal factor, internal force majeure. The second one. And also there can be some mistakes when we have maybe tender procedures or something like that. We have some mistakes. And we could also understand these risk factors more deeply. For example, monopoly. We should understand the sources for monopoly. Every day we are faced with some news, and we should understand economical news. And this economical news should be bad for our organization, it is some of the risk factors. Also, as we see, that competition became less for us, that will lead for the monopoly of our supplier. And this analysis can be made more deeply for more risk factors. And the cost of procurement of our goods, what consequences do we have? Of course, it will be some costs for our organization. And if we don't want to work with this counterparty who rise the prices, we should to find another counterparty. It will be some time costs also. And also some consequences can be connected with our reputation, because all our external counterparties would know that we will rise our prices soon and they would not work with us anymore. And each of consequences could also be analyzed more deeply. For example, the costs, it will influence the profit loss. It is part of KPI of our organization. Also, I think time costs can be connected with profit loss, and reputation, it will be not connected with profit. I think it is reputational losses. So if you want, you could also provide it as your KPI. So this is the example of risk analysis, and in many organizations it is a very illustrative example for risk analysis. You should not write this scheme every time when you make the analysis, but when you make it first time, it will be very useful for you to make this analysis with the help of this bow tie diagram. So, thank you for this lecture. See you on the next week.